Coming up in the next 1 hour, government to provide temporary housing facilities for the displaced in the Apiate explosion, says Vice President.
National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program making strides in reclaiming degraded lands and sustainable livelihood for miners.
Also in this package, high armed robbery cases reported in Akayanga in the Bongo districts of the Upper East region. Residents call for beef up insecurity in the area.
And US and Russia hold frank talks to try to reduce the chance of a wider conflict in Ukraine. Good evening. You are live on GBC News and on GTV. We are also streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Samuela Korte.
We are also live on DSTV channel 278. I am Clara Mlano. Robert Frimpong Manso will interpret the news into sign language. Good evening.
Now the news in detail. The actual number of people who died in Thursday's explosion at Apiate near Bogoso in the Prisiahuni Valley municipality of the Western region is 13, as officially confirmed by the regional minister, Kwabena Ochedaku-Mensah.
Meanwhile, government has directed the state housing company to do an assessment of the houses destroyed in explosion and make recommendations for their reconstruction as early as next week. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Baumia, who disclosed this, said this is in line with efforts to ensure
Apiate, a farm and mining community in the Prisiahuni Valley municipality, was yesterday razed to the ground following the accidental detonation of explosives being transported to a mining site. This has completely destroyed the town, which is along the Bogoso-Wasa-Ekropon highway. The explosion left in its wake 13 deaths and more than 100 injured persons, some of whom are receiving treatment in various medical facilities in the country. Besides, hundreds of people have been rendered homeless. Some of those are now being temporarily sheltered at the parish hall of the St. Michael Catholic Church at Bogoso. The explosion was so devastating that vehicles, an electricity transformer, and some household items were completely burned. Some of the victims who spoke to GBC News said they were in their homes, while others were rushing to the scene of a burning vehicle when the incident occurred. Others complained of not knowing the condition of their relations who were sent to the hospital. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Baumia, led a high-powered government delegation comprising the Ministers of Information, Interior and Lands and Natural Resources to console the people, show them love and appreciate the extent of damage caused by the explosion. The officials were briefed and led to the disaster scene. The Vice President and his entourage also visited those on admission at the Aseda Hospital at Bogoso, wished them speedy recovery and interacted with the victims being sheltered at the parish hall of the St. Michael's Catholic Church. He said government would bear all medical expenses of the victims, while the State Housing Company, in collaboration with other stakeholders, would work in earnest towards rebuilding the structures destroyed.
We will do everything that we are able to do to provide relief for all the displaced, to make sure all the sick are taken care of, government, and to make sure that the families of those who have passed are not left alone.
The Vice President later presented to the people large quantities of relief items comprising beddings, food items, clothes and 200,000 cedis cash.
A committee led by the police have opened an investigation to determine the cause of the deadly blast that killed 13 people at Apiate near Bogoso in the Western region. The Western Regional Minister, Mr. Kwabena Ochedaku-Mensah, said government will ensure the prosecution of any person or entity found to have flouted the protocols guiding the transportation of the explosive. He spoke to JVC News a while ago.
I agree with you with some of these sentiments, but not until even oil and gas came up. The issue of safety was not the number one topic. You know that's a fact. So I believe that the mines have been there for a very long time. The Ministry of Lands and Forestry has also indicated the formation of a committee to look at the explosive side of the work. Not until the investigation is completed. You cannot say that somebody out of negligence did this. Or you cannot also say that it was not pure accident. So some of these things, we need to really look at them. And then when the investigation is completed, the recommendations will determine. And then those that we have to deal with through the law, through the investigation, we can continue from there. Because these people are just innocent people. So we shouldn't box it together. And so I believe that that's where we should put our concentration, while the police and DNI and CIDs do their investigations.
Meanwhile, government has appealed for humanitarian aid for residents of Apiate, where the deadly explosion killed 13 and reduced the town to debris in the hope of reconstructing the community as soon as possible. The Western Regional Minister, Mr. Kwabena Dakumensa, said while the state makes the appeal, adherence to safety protocols will be strictly monitored.
So we are going to provide every support as a government, both local, regional, and central, to make sure that life becomes normal for all those who have been affected in this regard. It is those lives that have been disorganized that I believe that we need to concentrate on immediately, especially building their accommodation. So I'm throwing this out there to all good people of this country to do whatever they can to bring in the material so that we can rebuild the homes of these people who have been displaced. I think that should be our main focus.
A member of the MPP communications team, Ms. Ellen Darkon, says the mining company carrying the explosive which led to the disaster in Bogoso should be taken on. Also, CPP's women's organizer, Hajia Hamdatu Ibrahim, has cautioned Ghanaians to desist from the habit of moving towards accident grounds to capture information. The two were guests on GTV Breakfast discussing the explosion that occurred yesterday on the road between Bogoso and Bordia in the Western region.
There's an ally on how to transport explosives in this country.
Yes.
I've read a statement by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources stating that there were certain safety measures that were supposed to be followed. Now we have a trailer load of explosives. There was no fire service following them. There was no escort. There was no police. That is how you transport flammable objects. Like an explosive, because it has the propensity to wipe out a whole town, and that's what we see. So how come that this truck was traveling in the middle of the day, in the Harmattan, we are in the dry season, with no escort? Because if there had been an escort, that escort would have alerted the motorbike or pragya or whatever it was that caused them. So this driver was traveling alone. Orphans have been created out of this. Some people have lost their whole families. This is how bad the situation is. So people should be held responsible, because this accident shouldn't have happened if there was an escort. And that is my problem. How can you transport a trailer load? This is not even one small truck. This is a whole trailer of explosives without escort. Somebody's head must roll in this.
And one thing that I really don't understand some Ghanaians, where there are accidents, that is where people will be rushing to go and see what is happening. Instead of them running away, they rather go to where the accidents in. That's where we have to be careful. You see danger ahead, then you want to be the first person to take the picture, and then you end up going to kill yourself. They really, so they are there. Some were there, they didn't know what was happening, so maybe they accidentally they die. But what about those who decided to go or walk to their death by carrying mobile phones to us? They are not reporters.
Now, reports reaching GBC News indicates that another explosion has hit Kasi in the Ashanti region. This is barely 24 hours after a huge explosion hit Apiate in the western region. The affected area is alleged to be a hideout for individuals engaged in illegal fuel siphoning activities. Eyewitnesses say some individuals were using gallons to siphon fuel from the tanker at a hideout when it went into flames. Although no death has been recorded, some properties have been affected. We'll bring you updates on this developing story in our subsequent bulletins.
"82 fire outbreaks have been officially recorded in the Ashanti region alone within the first 2 weeks of 2022. The incidences have also resulted in the death of 13 persons, with some others sustaining injuries. An official at the Public Relations Unit in the Ashanti Regional Command of the Ghana National Fire Service, ADO2 Daniel Entry, disclosed this to GBC News in an interview in Kumasi.
Statistics from the Ashanti Regional Command of the Ghana National Fire Service show that a total of 1,111 wildfire cases were recorded in 2020. This figure, however, reduced by 143 cases to 1,254 cases officially recorded in the region as at the end of last year. Despite the gains made last year, residents in the region are raising eyebrows about the rate at which fire outbreaks are being reported this year. Right from New Year's Day, the Ashanti region has experienced fire outbreaks on almost weekly basis. They include domestic, industrial and bushfires. More worrying is the domestic fires, which destroy houses and burn occupants to death. In an interview, an official at the Public Relations Unit of the Ashanti Regional Command of the Ghana National Fire Service, ADO2 Daniel Entry, said 13 people died in fire outbreaks within the first 2 weeks of this year.
With this 82 incident that occurred, we realized that 40% of it were out on arrival. It means people were able to fight it or extinguish it before we arrived. So the number is huge, but to us, it's not alarming because of the education that we are doing now.
With the intensity of the Harmattan in the region, the incidence of bushfires is also increasing. For instance, inhabitants of Nintin near Asante Mampong have lost their large tracts of farmlands and crops to wildfires. Food crops destroyed include cassava, plantain and cocoa. They blame the bushfires mostly on hunters, some of whom allegedly set fire to the bush to force the animals out for hunting. The fire service has been educating the public on fire outbreaks,
which actually emphasized that every Ghanaian, every person living in Ghana, within this dry period, you have no right to send any fire into the bush, either to cook, to burn, to do any business, even common matches. You are not supposed to take it there. So I'm trying to use this opportunity to remind the general public that the Harmattan is actually intensifying, as you said. So they should not send any source of fire into the bush.
From July 2022, there will be a major turnaround from the negative widespread environmental and social issues, including deforestation associated with illegal mining in Ghana. Work on the National Land Reclamation and Reforestation Module under the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, NAELP, is picking speed as seedlings are being raised to reclaim degraded lands for sustainable livelihood for the miners forced out of work. My colleague Clara Mlalo reports.
Illegal mining in Ghana is infamously fast becoming a top driver of deforestation aside the known agriculture. The threat of illegal mining far outweighs the benefits therein, considering the health, environmental and social impact to both nature and man. The National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, NAELP, an approach targeted at providing genuine economic opportunities for the miners and mitigating the main negative environmental and social impact was introduced in October 2021. Barely 4 months into the program, its National Land Reclamation and Reforestation module is recording positive signs. 5 sites acquired in the Western, Central, Ashanti, Ahafo, and Eastern regions to nurse economic trees, mahogany, teak, Cinderella, and Ofram is taking shape, all to raise 10 million seedlings this year.
Our forest, which has been depleted, this tree species grows faster in this area. We would be planting some at the forest zones as well as the degraded illegal mining sites, which has been revamped.
While protecting Ghana's forest, the initiative is also helping to improve the living standards of the people, with about 1 million jobs estimated to be created in the value chain.
In terms of even the raising of seedlings, we are meeting our targets, which is the estimated 1 million people finding something to do. If you go to Fufu, over 300 people are there. We're going to Edinkra and then Akutem in the central and western regions. Then we go to, the planting of the seedlings as well. And that one, that's also going to eat into millions and, all that. So
for beneficiary communities such as Tetre and Akutum in the Ahafo and Western regions who have managed to resist illegal mining in the areas, initiatives such as this is laudable to keep the idle hands busy.
Because you see, and the many JP say, me man phone ya krano me obey say nipa be ahe nu ni akire a omoye na me be ma asase na da ho no mo so tifie na kwamode omo sisi ebe makro no se kro no okro makro be makro no so ate hia wa ha ebe ma hia ne so ate
mama modre kan sha Mr. President say project we on trim na nya kese na ma tie ne amoda esu na emblem se be ya ewu no be so bitwa.
If all goes well, the first lifting and distribution of the seedlings will take place in July 2022.
In the western region, we are raising 3 million seedlings. In the central region, that's in between Ashanti and Central, 3 million seedlings. Then part of Ashanti, we are raising 700,000. Then another 3 million seedlings at the BA. And then we are raising over 300 seedlings in the eastern region. Basically, we are adding coconut tree, the one in the eastern region. Because some of the reclaim they will plant coconut, and then the program is also supporting the greening Ghana. So maybe people living in Accra will have some of the coconuts in the Greater Accra.
For 2 days, officials of the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program have toured the project sites in 4 mining regions to assess the progress of work. For GBC News, Clara Mlano reports. Residents in Bongo Bio, popularly known as Akayonga, a farming community in the Bongo district of the Upper East region, say they are worried about the escalation of armed robbery cases in the area. They are therefore appealing to the Upper East Regional Police Command through their Bongo District Command to intensify patrols in the area and consider providing them with a police post.
There are over 1,000 residents in Bongo Bio, popularly known as Akayonga, a farming community in the Bongo district. Here, the residents in the area, particularly women, are also petty traders. The residents say they live in fear following the high level of robbery attacks on businessmen and women and mobile money vendors. Some residents called on authorities to provide them with armed security personnel on market days to ensure their safety. A victim of a recent robbery in the area, Mr. Louis Asabiga, said the rampant robbery attacks in the area are discouraging many traders from conducting their business in the area.
We need a police post here. Bio community is now becoming a center for the robbers to always have their way out. Because some of them, sometimes, when they chase them somewhere, they'll pass through here and then skip through the bush. Because there's a forest near to this community. So sometimes when they enter there, even the security personnel, they're even afraid to enter inside the forest to search for them. So it's like this place is now becoming a center for the robbers to carry out their operations.
A provision shop owner, Madam Hega Adumbila, spoke with GBC News.
Because the robbery cases have been happening, market is not moving on well. Because like by 7, 6, this market, people will not be there to buy things. So we always leave here early.
A victim, Mr. Timothy Mambo, with visible scars on his face following a recent robbery attack on him, also expressed his frustration.
The government have to do something with it by maybe there's no police station around here. If not Bongo, and Akayongo too is far from Bongo. During that incident, we called the Bongo police and they were not able to come on time. It took for about 3 hours before they then came, and after they came, they did all what they wanted to do and went.
A second-hand clothing business dealer, Mr. Christopher Asampambila, told GBC News the robbery cases have impacted negatively on their business.
The market not there. When we come here, you see nobody here in the market here. So because of the armed robbers, they make the market not there. We don't get money. The people don't get money to buy things.
A resident of Bongopion, Mr. Ayarebiri Agana, was equally worried about the high level of robbery cases in the area.
If they can help us with the police station, it will help us a bit. Actually, sometimes when the presence of the police is there, at least there may be that kind of fear. And aside that, or before we wait for the police station, then I think it will be right for the police to actually always have patrols.
Chiefs and opinion leaders in the community are appealing to the Ghana Police Service to provide them with a police post to save them from criminal activities in the area. For GBC News, Samuel Ayama reporting, Akayonga.
A Ghanaian lawyer, Dr. Maurice Ampao, has given some guidelines on how to make a responsible will. He says one must not wait to grow old before making a will as is perceived. He also says a will must be self-acquired before it can be passed on to an heir. On the kind of language to be used in writing a will, Dr. Maurice Ampao advised that simple language be used instead of technical language. He spoke on GTV Breakfast.
If you are 18 years and above, you qualified. And normally, when it's only privilege will, you know, we have 3 types of will. We have the wills under the Wills Act. That's the will that we borrow from the Western world. Then we have the Samansew, those traditional wills. And then we have privilege will, and that one is meant for the armed forces. So with privilege will, we don't have age limit. So once you are active as a member of the armed forces and as a citizen of the Wills Act, you can make a will regardless of your age. You can decide to do your own will. You know, you don't need a lawyer to it's not a must that you must have a lawyer. But when it comes to the Wills Act, you know, the formal will, there are technicalities. So definitely you need guidance from a lawyer. So what you need to do is that first you must find out whether you have the capacity. Do you have what it takes to make a will? Are you sound? Yes. So 1, are you of age? 18 years should be the limit. Then 2, sound mind. And then number 3, you should be able to understand what you are disposing of. And then you should ensure that it is from your own free will. No coercion, no blackmailing, nobody is not using force on you. And then also you must also make sure that what you are disposing of is your personal acquired property. You can only give away what is yours. So you don't just go and make a will and give your family's property to your children. In drafting a will, you use simple language.
You're watching News Hour live on GBC News and on GTV. Also streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. Please stay.
It's time for the business segment, proudly brought to you by MTN and Whirlpool. Good evening and welcome. I am Dorothy Achimai. The explosives disaster that occurred on the 20th of January at Apiate near Bogoso in the western region has brought to the fore the question of insurance policies entered into in the mining sector. We earlier spoke to the Chief Operations Officer of Bedrock Insurance, Mr. George Adair, who said it would be difficult for the Chirano Mining Company to compensate individuals unless they form groups or unions.
If there's a policy that picks up this liability, within that policy, steps would have been taken that when such a thing happens, this is what should be done. Now, in a case of this magnitude, it will be very difficult to get individuals.
Okay.
And so usually you have the people coming together and you realize that if a peer in this instance, opinion leaders in the environment that the thing has happened to be involved, you have the mining company being involved. And maybe action to be done, and then based on the insurance. Now, insurance will say that in the event of a loss occurring, such as what has happened, the total amount payable. In that case, no matter the number of people that are injured or who died, or property was damaged, that becomes the maximum amount that the insurance company will do. So that is why it is important for the affected people to come together, and then once they are together, if the amount of people, in case that there is insurance, which I believe there should be, then that money will be spent among the people so that no one person, that company can take their money.
The Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, says it is working towards a smooth and easy way for pensioners to renew their pension certificate by digitizing the process so that they can renew their certificate in the comfort of their homes. This was disclosed by the Director General of SNIT, Dr. Oforite Nkrang, at the 5th Quadrennial Delegates Conference of the National Pensioners Association at Dodua. Has always had the challenge of ghost names on its payment list, which is a drain on its resources and operations. As part of efforts to address the situation, the annual renewal of pension certificates was introduced to streamline pension payments. The pension certificates are issued to pensioners aged 72 who retire under PNDCL 247 and 75 years for those who retired under Act 766 and are renewed annually. Since 2018, the Trust has monthly been deleting the names of pensioners aged 72 and above who fail to complete or renew their pension certificates. According to SNIT, over 22,000 names of pensioners have been temporarily deleted for not renewing their pension certificates, and this has saved the Trust some 235 million Ghana cedis. At the National Pensioners Association Delegates Conference, the Director General of SNIT, Dr. Oforite Nkrang, said some retirees find it a bit difficult to renew their pension certificates, and the Trust is willing to assist them in the comfort of their homes to help facilitate the process.
We have put together a team that would go to people's homes and authenticate them biometrically and make sure that any pensions that we've withheld is restored. I mean, this exercise, as maybe as inconvenient as one may think it is, has saved us over 240 million Ghana cedis when we started it, since we started it in 2018.
The Acting General Secretary of the National Pensions Association, Mr. Stephen Boache, was happy with the increment in pensions. He appealed to the government to do more to improve the lives of pensioners. The General Secretary of the Public Service Workers Union called for a second look at salaries of public servants so they can have a befitting pension when they retire. You're still watching the business segment of News Hour. The Cote d'Ivoire Ghana Cocoa Initiative Steering Committee meeting has taken place here in Accra. Friday's agenda focused on the establishment of the new organization, presentation and validation of the strategic vision, approval of the international staff and the establishment of the institution's organs. In 2019, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire came up with an idea that was later seen by many as a masterstroke to bring some relief to cocoa farmers in the processing value chain. Even though the two countries produce close to 60% of the global cocoa beans, farmers in these regions really have nothing to show. For decades, the two countries have worked hard to produce millions of tons of cocoa beans to feed multinational confectionery and chocolate factories in Europe and Asia. Cocoa beans from the two West African nations are of high quality, particularly Ghana's cocoa, which is ranked as having a premium rate. Presidents of both countries were able to push for a $400 a ton living income differential on the sale of cocoa for the 2020-2021 crop season. Comparing to the success associated with Ghana hosting the AFCFTA Secretariat in Accra, Ghana's decision to host the Cote d'Ivoire Ghana Cocoa Initiative Secretariat also in Accra was seen as a huge achievement, meaning Ghana's capital, Accra, is gradually becoming a congregating point for advancing the continent's major economic activities. Two ministers of agriculture from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana and the heads of the cocoa institutions of the respective countries and the Director General of the Conseil Café Cacao met in Accra for the initiative's second strategic steering committee. The Cocoa Initiative's strategic vision gives a central place to the producer and his income. It makes the price obtained by the producer the key variable in the sustainability equation. 2 years after the idea of the living income differential was proposed, it confirms the relevance of supporting producer incomes through direct action on field prices. The strategy calls for the creation of an economic pact, which, in line with the LID, affirms the political ambition of agreeing among stakeholders on a minimum export price trajectory, without which no decent field price trajectory can be envisaged. This pact embodies the ambition to join forces with the two largest producing countries to shape the future of a sector that has been subject to market forces for too long without taking into account the fundamental rights of producers. This move upmarket has a minimum price on which stakeholders must agree and to which they must commit and be accountable. Let's have the performance of the city on the forex markets and the prices of some commodities. Segment proudly brought to you by MTN and Whirlpool. Mabel Annan is standing by with the energy news.
Good evening. Welcome to the Energy News segment. My name is Mabel Anang. The Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, has announced that the explosion which took place at Bogoso has affected the supply of electricity to some neighboring communities in the enclave. Speaking to GBC News, the PRO of ECG in the Western region, Mr. Richard Kweku, said the company is working around the clock to restore power to the said communities this evening.
Power supply to areas like Enchi, Asankagwa, Bodie, and surrounding areas were affected. What I mean by that is that the supply was interrupted and they don't have power as we speak now. But the good thing is that our people have been able to string the lines that were destroyed, as well as the poles that got bent as a result of the explosion. And we are sure by 8 p.m. this evening, power will be restored for all those who were affected to get electricity. The reason why it has kept long was that most of our poles, that's the wooden poles, got bent. We were lucky to salvage some of the tubular steel poles, which we have restored. So now we are adding the other poles to the tubular steel poles that we have restored in order for us to finish with the stringing and then supply power to those areas.
Government, through the Volta River Authority, VRA, has taken full ownership of the 250-megawatt Ameri power plant at the Abuazi Enclave. The takeover was finalized after meeting financial and other obligations due the African and Middle East Resources Investment Group, Ameri Energy. Government is subsequently making plans to relocate the plant to Almaso in the Ashanti region to boost power supply to the Middle East of the country. At the height of the power crisis, entered into a build, own, operate and transfer agreement with Ameri Energy in February 2015 for a 250-megawatt emergency power plant for 5 years, after which government will assume ownership of the plant. During the 5-year period of production and sale of the power to the VRA per the agreement with Ameri, the government through the VRA only made payments to Ameri for power produced and supplied to the VRA, just like any other independent power producer. To ensure a seamless transfer of the title of the plant from the contractor to the government of Ghana, it was agreed that some works be done. These include a condition survey of the equipment to confirm that it has been maintained in accordance with the original equipment standards during the period of operation. The Director of Thermal at the VRA is Mr. Edward Obin Kenzo.
50 megawatt Ameri power plant relocation from Abuazi to Kumasi and Maso will enable Ghana to export additional 50 megawatts to Burkina, estimated at $31 million per annum.
A Deputy Minister for Energy, Mr. William Oreku Edu, said the Ameri plant will be relocated to Awamaso in the Ashanti region to boost the reliability of power supply in the middle and northern sections of the grid and also for export.
We need primarily to move these machines to Ashanti region to stabilize the grid. You know, it's only Bui, which is 400 megawatts, which is playing the part of stabilizing the grid within the country in the middle belt. All the other generators are down south along the coast, Tema and Takoradi. So it's incumbent on us, according to the engineers, to get the machine, additional generators within the middle area of the country so that the grid could be stabilized.
Energy analyst Mr. Kwame Jantua says he is concerned about what appears to be a lack of proper planning to effectively operationalize the Ameri power plant when it arrives in Kumasi. Mr. Jantua said, though the takeover is a good move, he appealed to Ghanaians not to play politics with the 250-megawatt Ameri power production plant and its subsequent relocation to Kumasi.
anybody, any politician that comes up and tries to politicize this, you have got to stop them in their tracks, because it is not a politicization thing. It is a strategic thing. We can see it as something that would now help transmission, and we can see it as distributing electricity not only into the central and northern parts of the country, but also possibly to make it easier to export. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a wrong thing for them to move their Mary plant into the central part of the country. Now, gas infrastructure, because the Mary plant uses gas. Have we got the gas infrastructure in place before moving the plant to Kumasi? Because what we would have expected was that by the time the plant got to Kumasi, we are doing all the fittings to produce gas from Abuadze or wherever we're going to source the gas from within the gas enclave straight into America, so it can start. This means if the gas infrastructure is not in place, then we'll have to wait for that to happen. The most important thing about this all is the...
And that's how we wrap up for the Energy News segment. My name is Mabel Anang.
Brought to you by Lufat, Tobingo's premium gift to Africa. Now, Ghana has adopted the Global Standards 1 project to enable it to trace and rid its health systems of substandardized and falsified medical commodities. It will also address the risk associated with patient safety and reduce the financial burden of the National Health Insurance Scheme. A report by Sarah Furi.
And consumption of substandard and falsified medical commodities have always compromised on patient safety and sometimes resulted in fatalities. The perpetrators are said to be at the helm of an illegal cartel who rake in millions of dollars annually. According to the World Health Organization, their businesses thrive on fragmented distribution in the supply chain, and this usually leaves regulatory bodies at their wits' end. Hence, the flooding of the markets with stockouts and expired products. As part of the National Pharmaceutical Traceability Initiative of the National Health Policy, Ghana has adopted the Global Standards 1 project to ensure the availability and appropriate use of quality medicines and medicinal products using technology. This global coding standard provides product identification data in the supply chain system.
I wish to appeal to all stakeholders to support the efforts towards the implementation of track and trace in Ghana to help us rid the market of substandard and falsified medical products. It is my hope that in the very near future, track and trace will no longer be an option, but a mandatory requirement for registering medical products in the Ghanaian market.
The USAID-funded Global Health Supply and Procurement and Supply Management Project supported Ghana in its quest to ensure transparency in the supply of health commodities.
Since 2017, USAID has required that all health commodities procured with USAID funding are identified and labeled using GS1 identification standards. We are absolutely aware of the critical importance of a strong medical supply chain. Life-saving medicines and health supplies must reach the most remote parts of all the countries that we work in.
Inaugurating the governing structures, the Minister for Health, Mr. Kweku Agyemang-Manu, called for harsh punitive measures against perpetrators.
The people who do that, what should we do to them? They are murderers, and they should be sentenced to death. But we don't have any means, any system, any tool to catch them. And I believe we are getting closer to unveiling strategies to be able to grab them and see how hard we can punish them.
The governing structure include the Steering Committee, Technical Working Group, which include the GRA, NHIA, the Academia, and the Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association of Ghana, among others, and the Secretariat. Sarah for GBC News, Accra.
And that's it for health, brought to you by Lufat, Tobingo's premium gift. So Africa International News is up next.